Welcome back to the Scotti-BYTE channel, and this is Scott. So today I want to talk about Container Station version 3.0 on QNAP. The upgrade of QTS 5.01 to QTS 5.1, which I got this week, provides an option to upgrade Container Station from 2.6.7 to 3.0.3. And Container Station 3.0 was first introduced as a beta version in December of 2022, and although it's still marked beta now, I believe it is an official update. And the reason for this is because right after you upgrade to QTS 5.1, it will be provided as an upgrade option. And when you're actually running it, you will not see that it is a beta. It appears to be a production version. So Container Station 3.0 ends support for LXC containers, and it supports LXD, Docker, Kata containers, and lightweight Kubernetes, otherwise known as K3S. And if you haven't updated your old LXC containers to LXD on QNAP, I have a video which describes how to do that, which I made last year. So beginning in QTS version 5.1, Container Station 3.0 is offered as a Container Station upgrade in the App Center. And that's what leads me to believe that it is not a beta, because normally betas have to be manually loaded from downloaded packages. So in this video, I want to discuss the upgrades to LXD and what the new Container Station 3.0 offers QNAP users. So here we are on QTS version 5.0.1.2376. And if I go over to App Center right now, you'll notice that there are no updates currently available for Container Station. However, if I open Container Station and take a look at it with an about command, you'll see that I am running, let's see here, if I can get back in here, go over here and do an about command, it'll say that I'm running Container Station 2.6.7. Now, if I go back over here to Control Panel and do a check for updates, it'll say that there's a feature update to QTS version 5.1.0. We'll go ahead and take that, and when we come back, and we'll take a look and see how the system looks. Now, one of the problems with the current Container Station is you'll notice that it says that we're running QTS 5.0.1 here in LXD dashboard, which is based on LXD version 4.14, and the latest version of LXD is version 5.x. Also, one of the other things you'll notice is that it's running a LXC driver version 4.0.6, but no mention is made of QEMU drivers, and that's because the current version of Container Station prior to the upgrade does not support LXD virtual machines. So here we are after the reboot, and we've upgraded QTS to version 5.1.0, as you can see here. Now, if we go over to the App Center, or actually if we go over to Container Station first, Container Station's still running the same version that it was running when we were running on version 5.0, that is 2.6.7.44. However, if we go over to the App Center and launch it, you'll see that there are 3 updates being offered, and one is for Container Station 2.6.44, and it's actually an upgrade to version 3.1. It tags it as a beta, but it's interesting because you never see beta updates show up through App Center when you do a normal upgrade. you usually have to take extra steps in order to get a beta version of the software appearing in App Center. And I've done nothing such here. All I've done is a simple reboot of the system, and it's showing Container Station and Virtualization Station as being beta versions. But as you'll see shortly, when we go ahead and update all of those apps, when they come up, they do not indicate that they're beta versions. In fact, they show up as production versions. Here we are at the brand new Container Station version 3.0 interface on the QNAP QTS 5.1 operating system, and this is my lab machine. So up here you can see a summary of the fact that I have 3 containers running. It says I have 0 applications, 1 Docker container, and 2 LexD containers. And it also tells me I have 2 images, 2 Docker images, and 1 LexD image. So here we say that here's the name of the images, and it's giving you a top utilization. So the summary screen or overview screen is actually pretty nice. If we click on the next option, which is the applications option, and if we click create, what this is doing is this is reproducing a GUI interface, and what you would be doing is you would be inserting YAML code for a Docker Compose application. So we're not going to do that. We'll go ahead and cancel this and then move down to the containers option. On the containers option, we see that we have a Portainer Edge agent running here, and then I have 2 LexD images running, one called test and one called WETI. And then we have our images section, and our images section has a Portainer agent, a Rancher, which is part of their K3S implementation, and then I have an Ubuntu LexD image, which is for Ubuntu 22.04. And then under volumes, we simply have the Portainer agent data, and that's pretty much it. Under actions, it only gives me the option to prune, and I could go off and create a new volume, and if I create a new volume, it's basically only going to be a directory based volume for LexD, and I suppose it could probably be on another disk. So we're not going to do that. And let's go ahead and look down here at the Kubernetes. We could enable the K3S lightweight Kubernetes, which we're not going to do at the moment. And then in registries, they have the name of the registries. And so by default, they have Docker Hub and they have the LexD image server. So if we go back up to containers and we act like we want to create a new container, we'll go ahead and go to advanced mode, and all that really does is expose the options to the top level menu. I want to create a LexD image, and I'm going to call this LexD image Ubuntu. Let's see. It says, what is the registry image? Okay, so I know for a fact that the registry image I want is Ubuntu 22.04, because that's the one that I pulled down and I just showed you in the images section. So that's the image that I want to use. And then I do a next, and it goes ahead and asks me what I want to name it. Ubuntu-1 is just fine. I'll set the auto start policy to always, which means that when the QNAP boots, it should start this container. And under network configuration, I will say custom. And then custom lets me choose which adapter I want. By default, I'll say my teamed adapters 1 and 2, which go to my main LAN. For whatever reason, they don't make this MAC address a default, but I'm going to click on it. And what that says is it says that every time this container starts up, it'll get the same MAC address. And then I can go ahead and do an apply, and it reminds me what options I've chosen. If I go under advanced options, I can make changes to my network. I can make changes to add a storage mapping. Under runtime, we're going to need privilege mode because I have advanced file protections turned on, and privilege mode is a requirement for that. And then under resources, you can limit your CPU or memory resources here. So I won't do that. I'll just go ahead and do an apply, and I'll do a next, and I'll go ahead and review everything. And this is exactly what I asked for, the Ubuntu 2204 image from the registry, and it's coming from the LXD image server. So that's fine, and I've already pre-downloaded this Ubuntu 2204 image. I do a finish, it goes off, and it immediately fails. And the reason it fails is it says failed to create container, error message, failed to create container to get image fingerprint not found in local image list. And there's no explanation as to why this doesn't work. So I don't like it for that reason. I also don't like it because there isn't really any reasonable way to go up and create a container and offer it connection to a VLAN. So rather than this, I never use this container station interface. Container station 3.0 interface is perhaps friendlier, but out of the box, it flat out doesn't work. So I go over here to LexD dashboard instead, and I say create me a container. Hey, let's call this container Ubuntu-1. And then let's go under images, and I don't have any images right now, so I won't be able to create the container yet. So I'll go over here to images, and I do have an Ubuntu Jammy image, but this is a container image. That's exactly what I'm looking for. So I come back over here to containers, go ahead and create an image or create a container. I select that again. I probably had to refresh that to see that. That was the image that was pulled down from there. And I go ahead and say Ubuntu-1. Profile is default. Set auto start equals to true, which is exactly what I did with the other. I do an OK, and that should go off and create my Ubuntu image. And you can see up here it says image is created. There's my image. All right, so this time I'm even going to go under here profiles and add a profile, and I'm going to say go and add my IoT profile. So if you wonder how I got those profiles, watch my other LexD presentations on the channel, and they explain how profiles work. I go ahead and say add that IoT image and start that container, and that container will be up and running. If I go back to the container level and click on test again, it is started, and it has the address 192.168.30.13. Now if we go back to container station, there it is. It's up and running. And if we take a look at that container called Ubuntu-1, it's created with the Ubuntu Jammy interface, so it's not really clear why that didn't work. So now I have an idea. Even though I said 2204, I'm going to guess that what they want you to do instead is we'll go to advanced mode, or we will stay at basic mode this time, and we'll go down here and say LexD image server, and we'll say that we're going to do Ubuntu, and not 2204, but Jammy, because that's the name of the downloaded image. And now I'm going to do a next, and now I'm going to do an always, and now I'm going to come back down here and say custom interface, adapter 1 and 2. I'm going to change my MAC address, do an apply, and go ahead and say next, and finish, and say yes, enable privilege mode. And boom, this thing is going off and saying it's creating this time, and it looks like it actually is working. So there you go, we do have Ubuntu 2. So despite the fact that I pulled this thing as Ubuntu:2204, the actual image name ended up being called Ubuntu Jammy. So that's why the creation of the container the first time didn't work. And I should be able to go down here when I create containers and say create. I should have a drop-down list of the available containers that are currently downloaded on my system right here, so I can choose from one of the valid names, but they do not give you that option. In addition to that, one of the other things is that if I go here to my Ubuntu One container that I created, you'll see that it is created with Ubuntu Jammy, and you can look at all kinds of options here. It doesn't really give me the IP address, and it doesn't give me the forwarding information for whatever reason, not sure why. Certainly if I come back here to LXD dashboard and I go to overview, I can see that this container test is at 192.168.30.16. If I look at containers overall, I can see Ubuntu One is at 192.168.30.177. Ubuntu 2 is at 172.16.1.246, which is actually the one that we just created. So here I have full management of my LexD containers, and it doesn't matter if they got created in Container Station or if they got created here. Over here, not so much. So what about the fact that when I create a container and I want to create an Ubuntu container, and we'll just call this one Ubuntu Jammy, now that we know that's what we're supposed to do, and we do a next, and then we'll call this one VLAN -test, and we'll say go ahead and start this thing always, go under here and say custom, and then instead of bridge mode we'll choose VLAN. Well, wait a minute, VLAN is grayed out. Why is that? Well, the reason VLAN is grayed out is because you would have had to have gone, we can't use our profiles because our LexD profiles are not accessible through Container Station 3.0. So instead, what we would have had to have done is we would have to have gone to network and virtual switch. Over on adapter 3, which I say is for VLANs, if I come over here, I can say add a VLAN. And I can say add VLAN 30, which is on my network. And I can call this thing IoT network. I say obtain an address automatically because there's a DHCP server out there for that. And I say apply. So it goes off and it creates a VLAN adapter on this thing, and you can see that VLAN adapter here. If I go back up to overview, you'll see in the overview screen that instead of seeing adapter 3 displayed, I have adapter 3 and I have VLAN 30. Now I can go back and even add another interface. So if I go back over here to adapter 3 and say add a VLAN, and let's say I'm going to add VLAN 80, which is another VLAN on my network, and I'm going to say DMZ, because that's what it's called. And I'll do an apply on it. And now we have two VLANs. Of course, these VLANs exist on my network. So we have a VLAN for IoT, and we have a VLAN for my DMZ. And here's both of them down here. And then if I go back up to overview, similarly, you'll see that over here I have VLAN 30 and VLAN 80. So now that I have those, I can go over here to bridge, and I can go down, and VLAN shouldn't be grayed out. So I think I probably have to cancel this creation, cancel that again, go ahead and say create, and then say basic mode, go over here to LexD, go over here and say Ubuntu Jammy, since that's the name of the image, not 2204, even though I could pull the image as 2204. And let's just call this VLAN-test like last time. Go ahead and set this to always. Network configuration we'll set to custom. And then we'll hit the drop down menu here to VLAN, which is now highlighted. And now we have a choice of either VLAN 30 or VLAN 80. And it's not finding VLAN 80 for whatever reason. It's only finding the first one, and that's been my test so far. You've only been able to create one VLAN that you can actually use, yet both those VLANs do work through virtualization station. So now if I do an apply, and I do a next, and I do a finish, and I enable privilege mode since that's a requirement, it should go off and create my VLAN test device, and it's creating that. And it's running right now. And if I click on it and look at it, it has an address of 192.168.30.141. So it in fact did use that particular VLAN. So if we go back to network and virtual machine, you can see that VLAN 80 down here does have an address, or VLAN 80 does have an address as well as VLAN 30, and so I should be able to use VLAN 80 also. If I go back to interfaces, you can see that both of those are not grayed out. They both exist, so that's great. So let's go ahead and exit Container Station. Let's go ahead and relaunch Container Station just to make sure that we're doing everything correctly. And this time let's go down to containers and let's create another container, and let's go here to LXD image server, and let's do an Ubuntu Jammy, and let's go to advanced mode. It's going to be a LXD image. Go click on next, say always, start, network configuration, custom, bridge will be VLAN, and under here we don't want VLAN 30, we want VLAN 80, and this time it'll let us choose VLAN 80, and I presume it's because I exited Container Station and re-entered it. So now I do an apply there and do a next and a finish, and yes, again enable privilege mode, and this time it's going to create VLAN test. Let's see, what was this one called? Oh, this one was called Ubuntu 3 because I didn't change its name, and this should get an 80 address when this thing eventually starts. So let's see what happens there. Maybe it won't refresh this screen. Let's hit Ubuntu 3, and sure enough, there's 192.168.80.138. So that works just fine here, but we had to create those VLAN adapters in QNAP, and if I go back over here to LXD dashboard, you can see that they're running at the proper addresses. Probably a bigger concern to me is that although we have LXD containers and we have Docker here, I wonder why they chose not to implement LXD virtual machines. So if I go to LXD dashboard, as I pointed out kind of up front, if I go to VMS Fog, which is this particular node, you see that it has a LexC driver and calls out the driver version. On the other hand, if I go to one of my Ubuntu LXD server nodes, you can see it calls out both LexC and QEMU, and it says it's running LexC driver version 5.02 and QEMU version 8.0. If I go back up here to VMS Fog, we see LexC version not 5, but version 4, and there is no QEMU version. What that means is if I go to virtual machines and say, create me a new virtual machine over here, and call this thing test-VM, and go down here to images, let's see, I guess I really don't have any images under this. I could pull an image, but the end effect is it will fail, and the reason it will fail is because the infrastructure is lacking in order to be able to do that. And I hoped that one of the things they were going to do with Container Station 3.0 was to support the very powerful LexD virtual machines, and they never did do that. So if you're running QNAP and you want LexD virtual machines, the best thing I can say is go off and create yourself an Ubuntu server and install LexD there. Or you could use Virtualization Station, create a VM, and then create LexD containers inside of it, which probably wouldn't be the most efficient way to do it, but it would be possible at least. If you look at Container Station from the main screen, you'll see that it just calls itself out as Container Station. It's not a beta for version 3.0. And the same thing is true if we come up here to the menu. It says Container Station. However, curiously, if we go to the App Center, it calls this out as Container Station Beta. I do not believe this to be a beta because when I upgraded to QTS version 5.1, it automatically offered this Container Station 3.0 as an upgrade option, and it should not have done that if it were a beta. So I think that this beta label in here is simply wrong, and I believe that QTS 5.1 offers Container Station 3.0 as the natural upgrade path. The other thing I was going to point out is that once you're running Container Station 3.0, you don't have any ability to manage LexC containers any longer. And I have a video talking about how to convert your LexC containers to LexD containers before you make the upgrade to Container Station 3.0, and you can search the channel for that particular presentation as well. So in summary, Container Station 3.0 offers a nice GUI interface for your Docker and LexD containers on QNAP. Container Station 3.0, though, falls short by not providing access to the powerful capabilities of the LexD API, and specifically, it has no ability to designate and manage LexD profiles. Container Station 3.0 still provides no means of using the powerful capabilities of LexD virtual machines, and I think that is really a serious limitation because that is a fundamental part of LexD. And I still believe that LexDware LexD Dashboard is the best way to manage your LexD containers on QNAP. Anyway, that's it for today. Please subscribe and like to the channel, and don't forget to hit that notification bell, and we'll see you next time.